Welcome, hypergrowth entrepreneurs. Today I'd like to talk to you about the case for assessments. Here's the problem. How do we hire the best people? And once we hire them, how do we provide the training that engages and motivates them? Let's take a look at the problem another way. Would you get married just after 2 dates? Yet that's what we're doing when we have to decide which people we want to work for us as a lifelong associate. So we need to do it right. Here are some of the challenges. Today, more than half of all job candidates misrepresent their qualifications and their resumes. Secondly, most hiring decisions are made in haste, usually during the first 5 minutes of an interview. And there's many reasons for that. Chances are good that 66% of your company's hiring decisions will prove to be mistakes in the first 12 months. That's an incredible quote by Peter Drucker. But the reality is, it's true. Well, one of the things we realize right from the start, that assessments help managers become more effective because 60% of their time is spent fixing people problems, or as I call, babysitting. That leaves only 40% of their time for working to reach the company's goals. And I've talked to a lot of business owners who find recruiting as a real pain. It's something they hate to do. And all too often, they tell me, well, if this hiring decision doesn't work out, I can always get rid of them in 90 days. Not only is that the wrong attitude, but they don't get rid of them in 90 days. They hang on to them for years. Building and sustaining any business is based upon your ability to make great people decisions, to be able to find talent. I talked with Greg Smith with the Maui Analytical Group and 24/7 assessments. Greg has been in the human performance game for over 25 years. He started as an executive recruiter, but quickly discovered that the initial impression that one got in the face-to-face interviews was not a reliable criteria for identifying or placing top-performing candidates. That led him to begin a search for performance tools that could actually see behind the interviewing mask and provide reliable indicators of probable performance that he could trust. He found there were simply no silver bullets, no single measurement that could reliably predict performance. Here's some background on Greg. He studied for 5 years with Dr. Hartman's graduate student, Wayne Carpenter, who shared a lifetime of study on the essentials that drive human performance. Dr. Hartman was nominated for the Nobel Prize for his pioneering work measuring how humans think, called HVP, Hartman Value Profile. You can see that Greg has had a lot of great training right from the start. It has come full circle in the last 10 years. Now Greg is comfortable that he has identified the universal human factors that drive strong, average, and marginal performance. He has identified how to measure those factors, and he has assembled those measurements into an easy-to-read and understand performance model that is providing the integrated answers to the questions that every client is asking. First, can this person do the job? And secondly, will they be internally rewarded and empowered while doing so? If we take a look at the iceberg for a minute, they are so much like human beings. When you look at this iceberg, you can see the part that is readily visible represents only about 20%, 25% of the entire mass of this chunk of ice. However, this is what people see, and so we tend to make assumptions based upon the way in which this person communicates with us or the way they act toward us. What you see in human behavior is a DISC behavioral model. How dominant are they? Are they extroverts or introverts? How precise are they, and so on. In fact, what they have been able to do now is to measure the entire iceberg, and they can measure the components that really do drive human performance. It will give you insights that you've not been able to get before this. For the first time, people like Greg are able to give us scientifically reliable, integrated analysis of the key performance factors that actually drive human performance in human success. People in this industry have been in the game for over 25 years, and they discovered a number of things along the way that prove to be universally reliable. Number one, everyone is good at doing something. And number two, everyone is going to struggle at something. Every company asks me the same thing. Can you give me a performance answer not just on a bunch of data that I have tried to decode and figure out for myself, but something that is easy to read and understand? And that's why I use the executive summary that Greg has developed. If we go back to the basic premise and the challenges that face us, the questions we need to ask. Firstly, and that is, what is it at the most universal level, the most foundational level, that drives human performance? What is it, and why does one person excel and another person struggle? The second challenge was to accurately measure them. And third, the biggest challenge was to be able to integrate them, to understand how someone's critical thinking is going to be impacted by their DISC, and what the role the motivators play in human performance. That was Greg's goal 10 years ago, and he's been working on it ever since in a non-stop fashion. Last year, he introduced the solution, the answer to those questions, and that is the Universal Performance Matrix. You're looking at the answer here, and it's called the gearhead. This is a great image. It's like a machine. They have identified 4 elements that work together. The result is the level of performance that they're going to consistently deliver because it's universal and it has application in so many different ways. Basically, it works like this. For all of us, no matter what we do, life happens, meaning that we're faced with problems, challenges, and opportunities. I would like you to embrace this concept because virtually everything you did last week or in the last 10 years falls into one of these 3 buckets. It's either a problem, and if you dealt with it before, it is, number 2, a challenge, which is a new problem, or it's an opportunity. Problems, challenges, and opportunities we all face, no matter what our job is. The way in which we choose, the way in which we decide to address these problems, challenges, and opportunities sets the course for a successful resolution. Our capacity to do this correctly begins with the first gear, and that is your credentials. Basically, that is what you know how to do. It's a function of your background, your formal education, and your experiences. We cannot reasonably expect you to do something effectively that you don't know how to do. And that could be something as simply as, do they expect you to weld aluminum if you have no welding training? We can't expect you to fly an airplane if you have no pilot training. Human performance, regardless of the role, begins right here, which is called the first gear. Your credentials. Your credentials are backed up by your track record. Track record is identified what you have proven over time, what you can do with what it is you know how to do, with documented results. Effective human performance begins here. What I know how to do. This is the foundation, the launching pad. Based upon this foundation of your knowledge, they then apply the 3 multipliers. What they're going to give you is scores of these multipliers. I mean, there's no way they can measure the sum total of knowledge. But what they can measure is the sum total of your decision-making capacity. The hierarchy of your internal driver's thinking represents your personal agenda and how you communicate your motivated critical thinking decisions that are supported by your area of expertise. These multipliers operate upon the first gear. Like a machine, the elements integrate. They work together, they touch one another, they influence one another. And like a machine, if one of these gears slows down, the whole machine slows down. If one of these gears has a meltdown, the machine stops. This is the key to human performance. It was right in front of them all the time, but they just couldn't see it. But now they've seen it. All these elements integrate and work together, and how these 3 multipliers integrate upon what it is you know how to do. The first and most important of these multipliers is critical thinking. This is the Nobel-nominated research that measures your capacity to look at the problems, challenges, and opportunities that you face that are supported by what it is you know how to do and make the right decisions. How do I solve this problem, overcome this challenge, and take advantage of this opportunity? Making a choice is the first and most important of these multipliers, because it actually sets the course for the solutions that you're looking for. It's like if we're in Boston Harbor on a sailboat. If we set our course due north, it would never take us to the Bahamas. We'd be going to Canada. A course due east would be Europe instead of our course going south. The ability to measure anyone's capacity to make the right choices gives you a leg up on understanding human performance that we've never had before. And that's why you as business owners need to grasp these assessments. It's an invaluable tool to get some science-based data versus just concentrating on gut feel. The first and most important of these three multipliers, and again, this is not addition, this is multiplication. In fact, Greg likes the power of compound interest. Multiplication has an amazing effect on performance. Here's an example. If we say that we were to select two people on a scale of 0 to 4, we're going to write, first of all, the credentials. The first one is being just average, 2 out of 4. That's the first multiple. Critical thinking skills, let's give them a 3 out of 4, which is quite good. This person has average credentials with good critical thinking, vision-making capabilities. We multiply this together and we get an arbitrary performance index indicator. 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now let's take the second individual who has the same level of critical thinking, but very strong credentials. You can see this individual is going to deliver a performance indicator that is twice as strong as the first. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. In the fourth grade, we learned about multiplication. The first number is the multiplicand, the second number is the multiplier, and it equals the product. Human performance is like that. The multiplicand times one of the three multipliers will give you the answers you're looking for about the overall performance that this person can deliver. Don't set the right course and you spend a lot of time at sea wondering how come we're not getting to the Bahamas. So the first one's critical thinking. The second one is the internal motivators of drivers. Let's talk about that for a minute. What this tells us is the action steps these people want to take as they take their critical thinking decision into a concrete plan with targeted results. You want to think of these motivators as your personal agenda, what you care about, what you're passionate about, because in reality, we all believe that the world is a better place if we just operate like the way we think we ought to operate. Within your capabilities to do so, you will always filter your critical thinking decisions through your motivators. Now, in fact, you can see there are 7. Also, these influence us. We've discovered that these motivators can influence by being a high score or a low score equally. They just influence you in a different direction. Understanding that gives you a tremendous leg up on understanding your people and enabling you to give them what they really need. And finally, DISC communication styles, the final gear. DISC is a delivery truck. It is how your motivated, critical thinking decisions, supported by your area of expertise, get shared or delivered or communicated to the other people in your world. DISC is a marvelous tool in measuring the how. That is the matrix. It repeats itself over and over again. The executive summary, it's the first integrated report that measures and identifies the key performance factors of critical thinking, internal motivators, and natural DISC communication style into an easy-to-read report that provides performance answers, not just out of data that you have to decode and decipher, but in simple terms. I use this with my clients and have exceptional results. If you want to find out more about the executive summary assessment or have one done for your business, contact me at coach@coachgustibusiness.com or call me at 855-499-9901. Also, if you like to, you can contact the great folks at Assessments 24/7. Call them at 206-400-6647. Thank you very much for your time. And remember, call Coach Gusti when second place is not an option. Talk with you soon.